Right, we're going to be moving on to a small group now of in-person presentations. And I'd like to introduce you now to Jane Wiltshire. She's from Sustainability Calls, and she's going to be talking to us about dodging doomsday. Thank you, Jane.
So today we're speaking about a very important topic, and that is saving our rhinos, and particularly the southern white rhinos, from becoming extinct as other African rhinos have. The problem, as we know, is severe. And this is what has happened to Africa's rhinos in the last 44 years since the ban was introduced by CITES. What can we do about this? There are two main schools of thought. The one is to make the trade ban really work, make it very strict, to make sure that the anti-poaching is effective and the penalties severe. But this gentleman, Einstein, is reputed to have said to keep on doing the same things and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So there are people that are saying, let's go the other way. Let's legalize the trade. You know, at least then we can use these stores of rhino horn, get some money. But as with all things, there are problems. What is to stop people, poachers, filtering in their poached or stolen horn into the legal trade if you don't have a properly thought out, well-regulated trade? Will removing the stigma of illegality ignite demand for rhino horn? What is the demand for rhino horn? We don't know because it is illegal. And finally, there are the cynics that say, this is Africa. Will we be able to do this without bribery and corruption undermining the whole system? There was already some consensus, and this was from the start of the study that was done, where people were asked, do you support the legalization of the international rhino horn trade? And 61% of them said absolutely, possibly because they were so desperate with what is happening with the ban. But there's problems with that too. CITES has a ban in place, and in order to get that lifted, we would need to get 2/3 of the 184 delegates voting in favor of an amendment. There are very well-funded, well-organized, professional, vested interests who really believe passionately that legalizing rhino horn is wrong and would fight tooth and nail. And finally, have we just thought that legalization will be better because we are just so desperate about what the ban is? Is this a properly thought through strategy or not? Is it going to be another knee-jerk reaction? So I used business management tools to force us to really think through what we were going to suggest and to build consensus around the best solution that has been thought through. And the two tools that we used was the one of repeated surveys to a group of interested and informed people and dedicated to, because each round of the survey was at least 3/4 of an hour. And in between each round of the survey, collating those results, analyzing them, feeding them back to the respondents, and then allowing them to consider what everyone had said and their comments and come up with more on that. And that enabled us to build what we called rich scenarios. A scenario is a coherent story of what a future could look like. And we are familiar with them in South Africa because of Clemens Hunter's High Road, Low Road. So, what did we come up with? To start with, as with all problems, we had to distill out the key decision. Key decision is, do we keep the ban going with on rhino horn, or do we legalize it? The key uncertainty, of course, is it going to work? Are either of these going to work or not? And how do we tell whether they are working or not working? Well, that was quite easy. If the rhino population is increasing, they're working. That's success. If the rhino population is decreasing, the rhinos are going slower or faster towards extinction. And the 53 respondents, representing 19 different stakeholder groupings, gave this tremendous amount of time and came up with 4 scenarios. The first one is where the rhino horn trade is banned, the population of rhinos decreasing, the enforcement is ineffective, the rhino custodians are slowly or fast surrendering, and there's gradually poaching to extinction. Many people said this is the status quo. So how could we make it that with the ban in place, there will be an increase in the population of rhinos? And the one that came up was Fort Knox. Protecting these rhinos like gold. It is only a partial success because you can't do it for everything. So in KNP, we have the intensive protection zones. The biggest private rhino owner has an almost military presence on his facility to protect his animals. If the trade is legalized, but it is not done correctly, then what will happen is, although the rhino custodians will get more money to be able to protect their animals better, the value of poached horn will continue to be high, and the syndicates will fund maybe smaller and fewer, but much more professional gangs of poachers. So, an arms race. What everyone would like is the gold circle, but it does depend on a regulated, successful trade that doesn't allow laundering and is not open to bribery and corruption. So, who are the winners and losers? Well, for everyone, with some exceptions, the current situation is the worst situation they could be in. For the middlemen and the poachers, they would hate it if there was a legal, effective trade. And the animal rights NGOs would hate for there to be an arms race. What are the best scenarios? Well, for everyone, it is a gold circle, with the exception of those poachers, middlemen, and animal rights NGOs who would favour a Fort Knox scenario. And interestingly, the syndicates would like an arms race because they will have the money and the networks to capitalize on that particular thing. So we have well thought through scenarios, and people have had really thought through it. Was there an increase in consensus? And let's see if I can get this right. You can see that the people believing in it had gone from 61% to 76%. And these people here who were absolutely against, over my dead body, if you can't read that, it says, absolutely against the legalization had gone down. But the really interesting one was this one. The people who were reluctantly against the legalization, mainly because there were so many questions that had been raised in their minds. So far more consensus. And it's not surprising when you see what is happening. This is Kruger National Park, 1/3 of the population in just 8 years. So those 53 people put together a lot of time to come up with what they feel is a good solution for our rhino. I am speaking to you. I gave 4 years of my life. I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking to everyone. What are you going to do so that we don't see this for our rhino?
Thank you, Jane. Are there any questions or comments from the floor? Okay, yes, at the back. Well, I can see there's an orange jersey. Could you come to the microphone, please? Is it Jason I'm seeing? Was it?
Interested if you could tell us a little bit more about who is in this 53 group of experts that you involved.
Okay, if I may just, I thought that might come up, so I do have that slide. I had to cull tremendously to get here. So the biggest group, and let's get that little red thing again, were the researchers and academics. The next biggest groups were quite similar. Media over there, ranchers, Big Five reserve owners, other private rhino owners. These were Kruger National Park and HNP and other state custodians, and biodiversity NGOs were a large lot. The others are all sorts of other stakeholders.
Yeah, thanks. And were they all South African or from other range states?
This was South Africa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hayley. There was a question somewhere near Jason. Laura, thanks.
Hello, thank you for the talk. What did I want to say? So I guess the conclusion is that the legalization of rhino horn could work if there is no laundering. So the first question is, do you think that's realistic, considering this Africa after all? Do you think it's realistic to have a trade that does not involve laundering or any corruption? It has not happened before with any other species.
I feel it is realistic if you see what we do with diamonds, and I personally now am setting up a trading platform to demonstrate this proof of concept.
Right. Second question, have you looked at the demand? 'Cause previous research has shown that if you legalize a trade, the demand will go up very quickly, and by that means you will not be able to meet a substantial part of the demand, meaning you might enhance the problem that is currently at hand.
Nobody knows what the demand is. However, there is history of this kind of thing, and supply rapidly grows to meet demand, but we don't know what the demand is.
Yeah, I think that's an important issue to maybe address before considering.
Thank you. There's so many hands and so little time. What should we do? What should we do? Out of time. The students have been very strict. Okay, let's save this for the Painted Wolf wines this evening and have a little discussion around over dinner and over wine. So thank you very much.
Okay.